So I was out having dinner with friends recently. In fact, that particular day, I hadn't eaten much. I was having one of those days. You know when you're just so busy, you don't even have time to go to the loo, let alone eat? So I was having one of those days. Anyway, we're in this restaurant, ordered our food, it arrives, smells amazing, and I'm like, yeah, get in my belly. When out the corner of my eye, I see my friend stand on her chair with her phone. And she's like, no, guys, don't start eating just yet. I want to get a picture. And I'm like, what's going on? She starts pulling our plates towards her and arranging them like this and hovering over the table like that. The entire time, I'm just thinking this, if it worked. Is that? I'm thinking that. Give me back my food, I just want to eat. That really was me. I like my food. Have you ever been in a situation like that? It's like proper crazy. Why do we do that to ourselves? Why do we feel the need to capture our lives in such a staged way? Why not just be? Instead, we feel this need to have social validation that we're living our best life. Because if we don't capture it, edit it, filter it, and stick it onto social, then can we really claim that it happened? Over 80% of our social media posts are announcements of our own experiences, so what we are up to. And this compares with 30 to 40% when we're offline. So when we're online, it's more about the me and the I, and less so about the we and the you. Have you ever noticed when you open up the Facebook app on your smartphone, first thing it'll ask is, what's on your mind? Similar to Instagram, add to your story, it encourages at the top of the screen. We're being nudged daily into sharing something, anything, about what we're doing, where we're going, who we're seeing. And coupled with this incessant need to keep sharing, those versions of ourselves that we're crafting come with this inbuilt need for a stamp of approval in the shape of likes and follows. Now, don't get me wrong, what I'm not saying is that social media is bad. I mean, for starters, my own business is built on that world. I help small business owners to harness its power in order to grow. It could be a great space for finding and connecting with new people, discovering enriching opportunities. I imagine many of you here today heard about this event having seen a post on social. But there's another, less aesthetically pleasing side to the social media coin. One that has us becoming unknowingly hooked into craving and needing the validation of others to the point that it's paralysing us, preventing us from taking action and damaging our mental health. I'd like to share something with you that I haven't actually spoken about outside of my own family before. A few months ago, I became all too aware of just how much I was over-relying on social media to give me this pat on the back or become this virtual daily cheerleader, to the point that it almost crushed me. So as well as showing clients how to do social, I spend a fair amount of my own time doing it for my business. And by that, I mean crafting the daily posts that go out across my 4 social media channels. I don't know if you're aware of this, but many of the main networks have an algorithm or a computer system working in the background, and it's judging to see how good or worthy your posts are of being shown to lots of people. So if your post gets lots of likes and comments, then the system will continue to show it to lots of other people who haven't yet seen it. And conversely, if you don't reach the right metrics, then your post just fizzles out. So anyway, going back to a few months ago, knowing full well how that system worked, like any good social media agent, I was focused on producing value-driven content for my followers. But somewhere along the lines, I lost sight of that. And instead I found myself enveloped in this world where I felt enormous pressure to keep posting. I was trying to appease the algorithm gods so that they'd keep showing my posts to lots of people. And at the same time feeling like I didn't know who I was unless I was plugged into that world. Now, I developed an unhealthy obsession. I wouldn't go anywhere without my phone. It was the first thing that I'd reach for every morning, checking to see how many likes I'd got on posts overnight. And it was still in my hand, and I was back in bed that same evening, tapping, scrolling, checking, to see who'd commented, sometimes long after my husband had turned the light off and gone to sleep. Now I remember one day I was in my office and I was looking at some data that I'd collected on posts, and the numbers they were heading south pretty quickly. And I just looked at this spreadsheet and I burst into tears. And I just felt this overwhelming sense of sadness just open up inside me. And the irony was, the business was doing really well, so the company was getting known, revenue was good, but I couldn't see any of that good stuff. All I could focus on was the fact that people weren't using their thumbs to double tap and show me some love. I remember one night my husband came home and said, look, you don't seem yourself, what's going on, talk to me. And I remember trying to explain to him how it was that I felt. And it was only when I heard myself out loud that I realised just how meaningless my efforts had become. I was also tremendously confused because here I was, a social media coach, trying to empower others, whilst at the same time feeling like I was a prisoner inside the very world on which I'd built my entire livelihood on. That really messed with my head. Leading US psychologist Sherry Turkle said it best when she wrote, "We expect more from technology and less from each other." How? How had I allowed myself to become like this? I needed to find out why this was happening. So I started to read up and educate myself on that other side of the social media coin. And what I discovered was that anxiety that I felt, the sleeplessness I was going through, these are all consequences of the very design features that are being built into the very fabric of many networks. So this stuff isn't happening purely by accident. There are teams of people, usually consisting of young white men out in Silicon Valley, whose sole purpose is to design social media networks in such a way that they keep us hooked. Why? Because the longer they've got the attention of our eyeballs and our input, the more that they can charge for advertising and data. So those same app designers are tasked with creating rewards for us, baiting us with questions such as, what's on your mind? Or sending us little notifications that our name's cropped up in a post somehow, but they won't tell us exactly how until we open the app and dive in, which of course we do. So one time you open the app and you realise that you've got a few more likes on your post. Great. As a reward, you get a hit of dopamine because it feels good to be liked. Another time you open the app, there was just somebody else commenting on a post that you'd commented on a few hours ago, so no dopamine that time, just a dose of disappointment. And it's that will it, won't it variable reward factor, as they call it, that keeps us tapping and checking for more, kind of just in case. The comparison factor, that's another hook. So let me just give you a quick example. Something like Instagram or Twitter. At its very base level, it tells you two things. How many people like your posts and how many people follow you. But it also displays those two sets of figures for everybody else to see. So what do we naturally do when we know we can see everybody else's numbers? We start to compare ours with theirs. How come that person's got more followers than I have? How come their post got more likes than mine did? And for some of us, like me, you can start to obsess over these vanity metrics. And we quickly forget why we went onto social media in the first place, which was to be social, or to stimulate relationships with prospective customers, or find like-minded people and meet up with them. But instead, we get caught up in these numbers that mean nothing and lead nowhere. The only place that they lead to are places where people feel sad, lonely, and even alienated. When you keep receiving those doses of disappointment, how motivated are you to want to change or influence the world around you? I know I certainly wasn't. So in her 2018 speech at the Climate Talks in Poland, then 15-year-old Greta Thunberg said, "I don't care about being popular. I care about climate justice and the living planet." Now, her School Strike for Climate campaign has created headlines around the world, and it's driven millions and millions of school children out onto the streets demanding change. Now, in terms of kind of like whether or not you like what she's done is use the mass amplification of social media in order to drive awareness of what she's doing. She doesn't care about followers for followers' sake. Instead, what she's done is to use the power, the might of her followers in order to unite and galvanise them into taking in-person action. Now, we can't all be Greta Thunbergs. Neither am I proposing that's what we should be doing. But what I am urging us to do is to become more aware of ourselves and the role we allow social media to play in our lives. Now, the way to be able to reconnect to what matters most to you and to find out sort of like key things that keep you going, more so than just social media, you need to be able to do two things. Firstly, it's to set the rules for how, why, when social media can play a part in your life, because it should never be a given. And secondly, it's to get as much human interaction as you can. And when we find that balance between real and social engagement, we'll find ourselves conversing more, talking to one another, looking into the eyes of that other person when they're speaking or listening. And it's out of moments like that that we'll find ourselves starting to empathise with one another. And it's from a place of empathy that we can act to help influence the world around us. Now, I don't have all the answers, but this is how I started to recreate a bit of balance when I stumbled a few months ago. So as you've heard, I started to read up and educate myself on the other side of that social media coin. I started to reclaim space back in my life and in my mind. I've set boundaries for myself as to when and how I'll engage with social. But it's not just a case of time management. It's about understanding that when I do engage, that it's full of meaning and purpose. So hopefully a lot less mindless scrolling. And I've also given myself permission to not feel so bad if I don't get the likes I thought I would have done on a post, because I'm driving as much human and one-to-one interaction as I can with my followers, with my clients, and using social where relevant. But it's when I'm with them in person, that's when I know I can make the biggest difference and help influence their world as well as mine. So I want you to promise me something. The next time you find yourself tumbling head first down the rabbit hole of mindless scrolling, or feeling this pressure to post, picture those app designers creating those hooks, and remember, you have a choice. Validation doesn't come from a computer system. It comes from you setting the rules for how you allow social to be a part of your life. Claim back your power over social and also your self-worth. Because believe it or not, you are in control of social media, not the other way around. Thank you.